Alright, today we're going to start on the Android stuff to begin with, and we're taking this slow. We have 2 people missing, but we're taking it slow anyway because I want you to understand it. The first chapter is a fundamental chapter to you understanding this stuff. Fortunately or unfortunately, the first chapter is over 100 pages long in what we're going to be going through, but we're going to take our time anyway. If you want to follow along, you can go out to the URL that's right here. I've given you access to this stuff earlier, but that may be the fastest way for you to get out there. So just in case you want to open that up, I'll leave it up there for just a minute. Okay, if you don't want to, if you just want to follow along with me or whatever, that's totally fine. Today is Tuesday. My hope is between today and tomorrow we can go through this first chapter. All right? Then what I'd like to do on Thursday is literally have us as a class write 3 or 4 apps. They won't be anything that'll set the world on fire, but it'll at least get you in the mood, etc., and get you where you hopefully are establishing a comfort level doing this. All right? Then on Friday, we're going to build an app, and it's going to be fairly simple, and then I'm going to say, okay, I want you to play with it a little bit, and then but the next class period, so probably, remember, no class next Monday, right? Martin Luther King Day, no class next Monday. So next Tuesday, we'll probably really start to take this app and do something with it. We'll bring in additional screens and the like, okay? So if you did go out here, what you are going to find, if you look up on the screen here, as it says, Android Developer Fundamentals. Now, off on the side here, okay, it shows us where we are. They have a bunch of classes, and what these classes are they're a series of lessons. You'll notice if you look right here, there's 3 of them for Kotlin. All right? I tried, believe me, I can honestly tell you this, I tried to convince Paul and Evan that we should go to Kotlin. I thought we should. They didn't agree. All right, Evan is the assistant department chair. If he says no, I have nothing more I can do. All right, but this is what we're going over now. Just so you know, it says here. I'm not going to read a bit of it to you. It was developed by engineers from Google. Okay, and there's a lot of stuff that's in here. I'm going to go through a couple things in just a minute. Now, what we are going to cover, and I'm hoping that we're able to do this in probably about the next 9-10 weeks, something like that, is Unit 1 here. Unit 1, if I click on the hyperlink, what you'll notice, there are 10 lessons in here. All right? Get started, activities and intents, I guess, build your first app, activities and intents, testing, debugging, etc. Then there's user experience, with user interaction, making it delightful, doing testing, then working in the background tasks, alarms and schedulers, then finally in 4, there's preferences and settings, and then there's database stuff. I'm hoping to go through every bit of that. For each one of those lessons, we will do a minimum of 1 app. Sometimes we'll do several apps. All right? If you look up on the screen, I'll grab, during the break today, I will grab one of my flash drives. Why? To tell you, if you look right here, I'm going to back up one. All right, this is where we were in just a second ago. Oops, that's where we were just a second ago. And they talk about the stuff they have here. One of the things that they have is it's called Code Labs for Android developers. There are, if I go to the Unit 1 that's right here, there are literally in here 31 different lessons that have code labs for them. All right? I went through all of them during the break. I didn't do every one of them, but I took that and basically put it into a humongous Word document. At first I thought, well, we'll do these. You know, it'll be something standard, but they give you the answers for all of them. I know, maybe you think, well, then we should do those. No, I mean, you know, you learn by doing and making mistakes and stuff like that. So we will take a look at some of them is what I'm getting to. All right? Now, a couple things, because I do want to get started on it right away, but I want to mention a couple things. First, this is the book that technically is optional for this class. The main reason that it's optional, it was published in December 2015. All right, most of the material for it was gathered in 2014, meaning 6 years old, meaning old. All right. Now, someplace I'm still looking for it. I've got a PDF of the first edition of this book. If I can find it, I'll give everyone access to it. All right. I've been trying to find one for the second edition. I can't find it. All right. Now, free downloads. Chapter 1, the introduction, all the apps. This is something, if you're interested in it, you can go out to Muroc.com, just register. It's free. You don't get emails from them, but you can get all that stuff, or I can put it out there. Now, they also have this, Android Studio Update for 2017, and that's here, and it's about 60 pages. All right, but again, it's a little bit dated because it's about 3 years old. All right, so I'm not going over anything from the Muroc text, just so you know that. Supposedly, they're going to start this year upgrading this book and bringing it in, but it won't be published probably till 2021. All right, that doesn't help any of us. All right, so I'm going to literally just go right here. All right, I'm going to go out to the Getting Started lesson. All right, and I've got it here as a PDF. So I'm just going to jump right to the beginning. I'm taking for granted that if you have questions, you're going to ask. I'm also taking for granted that if I ask if there are any questions and no one asks, that you get what I'm saying. All right? I'd rather be deluged with questions than have no one ask and have you sit there and say, well, I don't know what the hell he's talking about, but maybe I'll get it later. All right? The claim by Google is that if you go through this, and this, we're going through the fundamentals. There is an advanced one, too, that you can go through. We don't have time to go through them both. All right? But if you go through both of them, according to them, you can sit for the Associate and Android Developer Certification. I know nothing about that. I did go out to the website. And for the study materials, they basically reference all their own stuff. Well, the Associate Android Developer Certification, I believe, is a Google certification. This is put out by Google, so I can see where they would reference their own stuff. All right.
Are you certified?
I'm not in here, no. All right, course materials. This is referred to as the concept reference. Okay? There are those code labs. Like I said, I do have them all loaded. I'll get them for you during the break. The slide decks, I've never even looked at those. All right, I'm not sure what those are. So what does the course cover? Again, one thing I want you to know, there's 2 versions of this course. You actually have Volume 2. It's 1.5 years old. See that on the screen? Last updated September 2018. All right. Well, what does that mean? It hasn't changed a lot, and where I know there's differences, I'm going to point them out to you. All right? So, Unit 1, as mentioned right here, is called Getting Started. Now, look up on the screen if you would, please. You know, what is Android? Why develop apps for Android? Some of the stuff that's in here, for lack of better words, is a little bit of self-promotion. All right? And I'm not going to go through that. I will tell you that by and large, all right, and you'd have to look and see if it's changed, but the last number that I heard was somewhere around 55-45 if you look at all the apps that are out there mobile and you look at Android versus iOS. Now, could that have changed? Of course it could have. And I've also told you this, that if you want to register as an Android developer, it's one time and it's $25. If you want to register as an iOS developer, it is $99 per year. All right? So, and there's other differences too. Now, first and foremost, if you look on here, it's both an operating system and a programming platform. And one of the reasons, again, that we are using Android Studio as our IDE of choice is that's what Google recommends. Just so you're aware of it, what we had been using for Java, if you did go out and download the IntelliJ IDEA, you can build complete Android apps and use IntelliJ IDEA instead of using Android Studio. You can do that. It's not a problem doing it. All right. So as it says, Android includes an SDK, a software development kit, which basically has virtually everything that you need. Now, the other thing that I have to assume is at the end of last semester, when we spent that day and I said, let's download Android Studio, I have to suppose you all did it. If for some reason you did not do it, or you had problems or whatever, the easiest way to do that, if you look up on the screen, the magical page, so to speak, for all things Android is developer.android.com. Okay? Now this page changes as far as how it looks all the time. But if you do go out there, there is a download in here. There's all sorts of stuff in here. There it is, Android Studio download. There are developer guides. There are code snippets. There are a lot of things. I'm not going to go through that. I'm just telling you, there's a lot of stuff there. All right? All right. So why develop apps for Android? And they say there's a variety of reasons. All right. There are a lot of companies right now, and I mean a lot, out there that their website is anywhere from 5 to maybe even closer to 10 or 15 years old. It was developed a long time ago, and it was developed basically for a PC, not even for a laptop, mainly for more a desktop. It may or may not be responsive. It may totally not work on a phone. All right? A lot of those places are looking to hire Android developers. I mean, I could give you the smart-ass answer. Why develop apps? Well, if you want to get a grade in this class, you got to develop some. All right? And that's true. And the other reason people do it is to make money. Now, again, I don't want to read to you, but if you take a look at what's on the screen right now, this is from page 6 of this. Android gives you plenty of ways to interact with the user. All right? You can get what's called a soft keyboard. Everybody hear what I just said? Your keyboard that's connected to your machine, that's a hard keyboard. What's going to happen eventually when we go in and we run an Android application, all right, when you run it, you're going to have an emulator, all right, which is going to look like almost like a phone on your screen. That will have in it, when you go to run the program, it'll have a keyboard on that phone. That's a soft keyboard, all right. But it also, you can make your program respond to touch gestures, as it says, swiping, tapping, pinching, etc. All right, not my goal to sit there and read anything in here to you. All right. Now, one thing, as it says, it's designed to provide immediate response to user input. Whatever you end up creating in here in a couple months, when you start working on your own app, you should strive to make that the case. I don't care if it's a game, if you're providing a service, what it is you're doing. You want to make sure when somebody puts in some information and clicks a button or just clicks a button or whatever, they get a result back as soon as possible. All right? Now, some of the stuff that's in here is going to confuse you. Literally, we're going to start to create an app. The app will do basically nothing, but we're going to do that in a couple minutes. Why? Because it'll allow me to explain the structure, how everything is set up, etc. in here, and a lot of different things. All right? When you go in and you actually start to build your interface, there's 2 ways you can do it. You can, as we're used to doing in a language like C#, You can go up to where you've got your toolbox and drag tools out there. You drag controls out. You can do that. Or you can write it in the XML. I'm going to show you both ways of doing it. You're going to see both of those today. As it says, Google offers an IDE called Android Studio. All right. Now, if you looked at the way that Android is set up, for lack of better words, in total, and if you look on the screen or if you look on page 8 in this handout, this is what you're going to see. The higher up you are, the closer you are to the user in the actual app, the lower you get, you're in the operating system. Chances are pretty good you're never going to have to do anything where you're going to have any communication with the Linux kernel or with the hardware abstraction layer, sometimes called the HAL. All right? But when you start to get up here, notice that some of the native libraries, so some of the hardware libraries basically that Android needs to do its job, they're not written in Java. They're written in C and C++. Because by and large, C and C++ will run faster. All right? This is the Android runtime environment. One thing I did not even mention to you, all right, one thing I did not even mention to you when we were talking just Java, all right, that for virtually about the last 20 years, any computer that you buy, doesn't matter what kind of computer it is, anything from a tablet usually, but if nothing else, at least from a laptop on up, has inside of it something that's called the JVM. The JVM is the Java Virtual Machine. It's the thing that behind the scenes, when you created a Java program and you compiled it, so we made a Java program that we call, let's say, Payroll06.java. When you compile that program, what happens is, actually, it compiles it into a program that's called Payroll06.class. So it takes the same name as your Java program, but it puts it into an intermediate level that's called .class. Then what happens is that between the JVM, it basically interprets that program. Most programming languages that are both compiled and interpreted, you do the interpretation first, then the compilation. In almost any one that I know of, other than Java. Java does it the other way. Java compiles, then it interprets. And the JVM, the Java Virtual Machine, is involved in all that stuff. So why am I wasting your time telling you that? Well, just so you know, when you work with Android, Android doesn't directly use the JVM or the Java Virtual Machine. It uses something that's called the DVM or the Davlik Virtual Machine. I think I'm pronouncing that right. I've heard Davlik and I've heard Davlik. It's a town, I think, out of Norway. I don't know who named this, but somebody did. All right. All right. Then you get up to the API framework. These are things that you might end up calling. All right. And then as you get up to the top, those are your apps and other apps and other things that exist up there already. Again, I'm not reading this to you. I'm giving you my interpretation of it. You can go and read all that and become as expert as you want on the different levels that are in here. That's cool. All right. Many distribution options. The key one in here is, again, part of your grade for this class, and if nothing else, it'll be worth at least 10% of your final project, is I want you to submit whatever you create to the Google Play Store. Now, it is possible that you'll submit it and they'll reject it. All right? As long as you filled out all the paperwork correctly and you put free in there as your price, they usually accept it almost 100% of the time. Because I've had people say this before, well, I don't want mine to be free. Then you scale down whatever it is you're making and you wet people's palate, so to speak, with the free one. And then you can let them know, want more? Well, that's going to be $9.99. I'm just going to ask this question. Does anybody know what the average price is of an app in the Google Play Store? And I'm not making this up. Does anybody want to take a wild guess? You're really close. 99 cents. And that's if you go and you combine all the free ones and all the ones that people pay for. And there actually is a reason it's 99 cents. Because people will say, look, it's not even $1, even if it sucks. You know, I'm not even laying out $1. All right? And you probably have done that. My wife told me she went to Walmart yesterday. She said, got you a bunch of baseball shirts. And I said, they're kind of ugly. She goes, they were only, literally, she said, they were only $1. So you got 6 of them. You're going to wear them. Okay, whatever. Sometimes it's just easier to say okay than anything else. Now, if you don't know it, all the versions of Android are named after what they say is a sweet, yummy treat. Sometimes it's candy. Sometimes it's a donut. Sometimes it's something else. So when we look through here, we've had donut, we've had eclair, we've had froyo, which is short for frozen yogurt, we've had gingerbread, honeycomb, ice cream sandwich, jelly bean, Kit Kat, lollipop, marshmallow, nougat, and Oreo. There's been once since then. Pie. Yeah, pie is the newest. This, remember, it was developed in 2018. All right, so since then, pie has come out. So that is version 9. Okay? So if you want to know more about versions, that's cool. I do want to show you something, and what I'm showing you now may or may not make a lot of sense to you, but I think it will make more sense as we go on. And I'm going to click, I think, yeah. If again, you don't have to go out here, but I'm giving you some URLs if you choose to go out here. So that was the one for the course. This is a different one, and it's right there. Again, you don't need the HTTPS. It's developer.android.com/about/dashboards/index.html. So in case you want to copy that and look at it yourselves, I'll leave it up there for 30 seconds or so. And there's other ways to get to this too, just so you know. Notice again how both of these start with developer.android.com. All right? I think I mentioned this to you guys when you were in the C# class. I said if you've got issues with Microsoft and a product, type in msdn.microsoft.com to get to the Microsoft Developer Network. That's actually changing. They're changing it from msdn.microsoft.com to docs.microsoft.com. The point is, this is the equivalent for Android. All right? So if you go out there, you're going to find this. This is what I want to show you. I'm going to have to make it small so you can see all of it, but there it is. Now, guess what? This is incomplete because virtually no one uses Android that was any earlier than 2.3. Did you hear me? That's like saying, you know, do you still use Internet Explorer 1 or 2? Okay? But the point is, look at the distribution, if you would. It's saying 0.3% use this. 0.3% use ice cream sandwich. And as you'd guess, so if you look down here, if we go down, let's say, to lollipop. So if I go down to right here, 5.0, all right, and I start adding 3, 14.5, 31.5, 43, 51, 64, 79, up. If I go to lollipop and go from like about lollipop on down, that's at least 80% of all users are using that. Why does that matter? You're going to see it because there's going to be some stuff we have to set up in just a couple minutes. In an ideal world, you would make yours for Pi because it would have all the latest and greatest features. The problem is what this is saying is that only 10.4% of people with Android devices could use it. Does that make sense? Yes? No? All right. The problem, though, is if I make it, for example, I want to say everybody from KitKat on. All right, right there, because that gives me about 86% right there. All right. What that means is anybody with KitKat is not going to be able to use new features. Anything developed after KitKat, they probably won't be able to use. It won't work for them. All right. All right. The challenges of Android development. Again, not designed to sit there and bore you of anything else or anything like that. The biggest challenge, believe it or not, in my humble opinion, of Android development is most Android devices have a battery in them. All right? And with most of those devices that have a battery in them, they don't have as long a charging life as a desktop or a laptop. All right? Plus, you can have the best game in the world. All right? So Christian can finally invent that game, and it's the best game, and a lot of people are buying it. Problem is, if people are playing it on their phone, either they're going to have to shut their phone off for calls and texts, or what are they going to do when there's a call and a text? You know what I'm saying? And you've got to watch out on most Android devices, because if you have too many things running, things start to slow down to a crawl. All right? And that's what a lot of this stuff is. Building for a multi-screen world. Hell, this guy was trying to sell me a refrigerator. I was at Lowe's. You know anything about Android? And it's like, yeah, because this, if you got a tablet, you can converse with your refrigerator using your tablet. Yeah, because that's what I always wanted to do. All right. Getting performance right, again, it's that like I mentioned, you can have a lot of stuff running. What do you do when too many things are running? Keeping your code and your users more secure. Security is always going to be a big thing. All right? And if you've got a way for people, even if you make a free app and you put it out there, my guess is it won't be 100% secure. There are ways to help secure it. We'll talk about some of those. All right? But I'll always remember my friend Doug, who was taught security. A woman came into his class and said, Mr. Tabbitt, I have a brand new computer, and I don't want to get any viruses on it. What do I do? And Doug was even more of a smart ass than I am. He said, don't turn it on. He was being dead serious. And she goes, well, I can't do that. And he said, okay, then never hook up to the internet. She goes, well, that's why I bought it. He said, then it'll never be 100% secure. No matter what anybody tells you. You can buy LifeLock. You can buy anything you want. But there's always people, at least it's possible, that are going to be able to hack into your machine. All right? Or if you click a button you shouldn't, or whatever. All right, making sure your app is compatible with older platform version. We've already started talking about that. And understanding the market and the user. All right? So you might build the best game ever. But you have to start thinking about, okay, do I want to build it for everybody? Or do I know that 90% of the people who use it are going to be kids under 12? Because you'd probably build it a lot differently if you knew that 90% of your users or more were kids under 12. All right. So the multi-screen world I already talked about. What I'm planning on doing, too, on Friday is bringing the, when I come in here on Friday, what I'll have is all of the tablets will be here. All right. I'm going to put little tags on each one of them or something. They'll have numbers. And I'm just going to, there are 10 of you and there are 10 of them. I'm just going to have a number, and it's just going to all be done alphabetically as I take them out of the box. Mr. Creasy is number 1 because his name starts with a C, so he'll get number 1. I'm going to hope that you leave those things on there, and you'll use that machine every time. All right? And I'm hoping we don't have any problems with any of the machines. It's like, well, what do we do if one of the machines isn't working for whatever? I don't know. All right? In the past, when I've done this, when I did this a year ago, I only had 5 people in the class, and I had 10 machines. All right? But those machines were so old, it was hard to get them to work. Mr. Corrigan literally got these 2 weeks ago. We're hoping the shelf life on these is 2 years. So you guys can use them, and the people who will be taking this class a year from now, they can use them. They were approximately $140 a piece. All right. Not only do we want to be able to use multiple devices, but we want to make sure that, for example, with a tablet here, it works whether it's landscape or portrait. All right. One of the things we'll look at, you can set it up. So Christian makes that game, and he doesn't care if you're playing it on your phone or if you're playing it on your tablet. He only wants to allow you to be, it won't work in portrait mode. You can set that up. It's just literally a setting, and I'll show you how to do that. It's not difficult at all. Again, maximizing app performance, you have to manage battery and memory usage. With a lot of these things, the more sophisticated the phone is that you get, sometimes whether you realize it or not, you're giving up some autonomy. And what I mean is, with some of the better made smartphones today, they know, man, you're taxing the battery too much. So if you've got 5 things running, they may look at the last thing that was running, and they may just stop the run on that. All right, just so you know, sometimes that stuff happens automatically. All right, security we talked about as it says. I've never used ProGuard, but it says you can use tools such as ProGuard provided in Android Studio. It detects and removes stuff that that shouldn't be there. All right. You should encrypt all of your code and all of your resources when you package the app. So if somebody ever gets a hold of your code, they're getting a hold of an encrypted version of your code. All right? All right. Yeah, the logins and stuff and passwords, typically it's not going to be a big thing. Again, remaining compatible with older versions of Android. You're going to see this more and more as we go into it. All right. Learn more. Just so you know, I'm not going to click one of these, but virtually every one of these is going to go out to developer guides that's under developer.android.com. Platform architecture that's under developer.android.com. All right? So if you want, you've got access to this, so you can go and take a look at anything that's there. All right, so your first app. This is what we're going to go through. We'll get up at around 1:30. We'll take a break. So I don't know. Either we're going to get on and start creating an app right before that, or we'll do it right after the break. But the development process, this is written and done pretty well. Using Android Studio, exploring a project, you will never, ever, I shouldn't say that like that, because especially considering this is being taped. I have no idea if Mr. Smith at the St. Louis campus is doing any written tests this semester. If he is, I'll have to take a look at what he's doing. But I don't plan on giving any written tests. All right? That said, you don't have to sit there and memorize where all this stuff is in Android Studio. You can look here, but a lot of it, after a while, it'll just become second nature. All right. We'll look at the Android manifest file. That's where you can set things like, do you want to only allow your app to work in landscape mode or only in portrait mode, if that's what you want. All right, so we'll talk in here about the emulator. You guys will all set up an emulator, hopefully by the end of the period today. We'll talk about log and logcat and why you would use that. All right, so they give you the development process here. You can all see it. I'm not going to read a thing to you. But this, when you are starting to work on your own app, so it is now the week after break. You come back, it's March 16th. All right? And I've said, this whole first week, what I want you to do, we're not going to go through anything new. What I want you to do is make sure that every project that's been due in here, if you didn't turn it in, you clean it up. But I want you to come in and I want you to start thinking about what you're going to do for your own app. You all with me? The first thing I'm going to want you to do when you get to that point, and I'll give you the URL for this, is I found this. It's free. Remember Balsamic Mockup? Remember that wireframing tool? This is a thing from Udemy. It's free. It's got 8 lessons. You can watch it in about a half an hour to 45 minutes. I'm going to ask that you go back and you review that. Because why? Because you're writing your requirements for your app. Now, when you write your requirements for your app, it's going to be a living, breathing document. So Mr. Perrier might say, I'm going to have 3 screens. And then he gets into it and he goes, Mr. Scott, I need a fourth screen. I'm sorry, you're not going to take off, are you? No. I expect it to change over time. You may or may not know exactly what your finished product will look like. But honest to God, I want you to come in here on the 6th of May, and I want there to be a half dozen potential employers in here, and I want you to just blow their frickin' socks off. Seriously. I want one or more of you to get job offers on that day. That's how good I'm expecting these to be. Seriously. And you're going to have plenty of time to work on them too. All right? So you will say, hey, I took this. You're showing them now you know how to wireframe, and you know how to take something, create your own requirements, all right, and take those requirements and put them into motion, and then eventually to take that app and put it out to the App Store. We're going to build an app in class one day, and I'm going to say, has everybody paid their $25, and have you all been registered as Google Android developers? And you're all going to say, yes, I have. And then we're going to create a simple app, and then we're going to take it, we're going to put it on the App Store, every one of us. And then you'll have an app out there. And then it'll make it that much easier when you go and put your own app out there that you're going to be doing for your project. All right? So this is what they give you. Create your project, define layouts, write your code, build and run, test and debug, and you'll always be bouncing back and forth between these, and publish. You want more? Read what's underneath here. Again, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to sit there and read stuff to you. All right, so using Android Studio, we will do it before the break. Everybody remember, if you have the icon in your taskbar down here, it's this little green thing that looks almost like it's got two horns coming out of it. If you don't have it, go into your search bar here and type in Android Studio. If you've got, look on the screen please, if you've got to do it like this and you want it in your start menu, right mouse click and say, you know, that you tell it you want to either pin it to the start menu, unpin it, pin it to the taskbar, or unpin it. Everybody with me? So I'm just going to start up Android Studio right now. I do not have it running. Android Studio, just so you know, I'm trying to answer questions before you're asking them. All right, I've already been using Visual Studio 2019 with my class this semester. Sometimes I have 3 or 4 versions up at the same time of Visual Studio. Are you all with me? I have found that when you've got multiple things of Android Studio up, it doesn't work. All right, it's best to just have one of them up and running at a time. All right. You may get something like I've got right here. IDE and plugin updates. They are constantly, Google is constantly updating Android Studio. I mean, there are times I've seen it happen. This is some junk I was working on. I'll show it to you in just a minute, okay? But there, you know, if you get this message, all you have to do is literally just click on update and it'll show you what's there. Now, this is a good news, bad news type of situation. The good news is I can click update now. The bad news is sometimes these things will take 15 minutes. Sometimes they will take 15 seconds. All right? But I'm just going to tell it to update it now anyway, and it's going to come in here and it's going to say, oh, look, there's some licensing stuff, so I've got to accept it. Go to next. It's telling me what it's going to install in here. I'm going to go to next. And it looks like that is it. So, well, when it comes up, I can go to finish. All right? It's actually doing the download. Can you see this? Now notice, 865.3 meg. That's why it's not going to probably be that fast. All right? If you are in the middle of doing an update like this, I would strongly recommend to you, don't do anything else. Don't start saying, well, I'm just going to run this app and see how it looks right now. Except don't do that. All right? And I don't know how long this is going to take. I'm just going to cancel it. I'll do it again later. Okay? I don't want this one up right now. This is one we're going to probably build later this week. So let me close this. All right? Am I right in assuming you've got something that's up that looks like this? Because I can't see most of your screens. All right. If yours is empty, it's just that this has got a bunch of projects that I've already created. Okay? All right. If you're here, go to Start a New Android Studio Project, which is the plus sign, which is the first option that's in there. Just so you look. If you look on the screen, what else is there? Open an existing project. Well, that's pretty obvious what that should do. Check out a project from version control. So if you were working in an environment where you were using Git, you can do that. All right. Profile or debug in APK. When we get all done and we have finished our app and we want to go and get it ready to put out on the Google Play Store, we have to rebuild it as what's called an APK file. So we'll talk about that in a bit. So you'll hear about that. Import project. So if somebody else has created something and you want to bring it in, either a project or just some Android sample code. I will tell you that if you go out to the developer.google.com and you look under their test code or code snippets, etc., they've got hundreds of links out to GitHub where they've got projects and all sorts of stuff. All right, so again, I'm choosing, like I told you to do, start a new Android Studio project. All right. Again, am I right in assuming this is where we all are? All right. Just so you know, if you look up on the screen here, these two things, basic activity and empty activity, are almost the same, except a basic activity, as you can see, has this little thing right here in the bottom right-hand corner. It's actually called a fab. Can't remember what it stands for. Something access button. All right. Floating access button or something like that. What we will choose most of the time, and we're going to in a minute, is empty activity. The other ones that are in here, bottom navigation activity, there's some stuff that's in here if you want to work with GPSs and locations. All right. You can do master detail type of stuff where, for instance, I could set up an application where I would list a company name and then underneath it I could have all the purchases made by that company. That kind of thing with a master detail. And there's even more. Login stuff, scrolling stuff. But the one we're going to use almost exclusively in here is going to be empty activity. So it should be chosen by default. If it's not, click on it and choose next. And that'll get you to here. And you'll notice it says empty activity. If you screwed up, you can back up. There's a previous button, okay? Look on the screen, please, on your screen or on mine, where it says name, literally, and you can go back and change this later, literally, that's the name that it'll go by in the App Store. All right, where it says name, that's its name in the App Store. It is perfectly acceptable to have blank spaces in here. Sometimes I tell you don't have blanks, you can. So Christian's going to build this game, and let's say it's a race car game, and that's what he wants to call it. You know, Christian's race car game. It's totally fine to have Christian's space, race car space game. That's totally fine. Or you can run it together, but most people don't do that. All right? This, literally, we're going to start with Hello World. So we're going to call this Hello World, but we'll call it two words. Hello World. All right? And typically, you will capitalize the first letter that you put in, of every word. Again, there are no Android police that if you break these rules are going to come and jump on you. All right? Now, next is the package name. Does it make sense when you look at this? Look at yours. I don't know what yours even says. But typically, when you set it up, you use what's called reverse domain name notation. So what I always asked everyone to do last year was to come in, what's the opposite of JP Scott at Rankin.edu? edu.rankin.jpscott. Get the idea? So I've always asked that you use this. Now, let's say you don't want to. Then what I would do is if you've got a Gmail or some other account, I would do it that way. Use your Gmail. That's fine. This is the way it's done. Again, it's typically referred to as reverse domain name notation. And wow, if I put this out there, you think there might be another couple out there that are already called Hello World? There could be thousands. So the way that I can distinguish it and know that it's mine is via my package name.
How did you do the package name?
I used, my email here is jpscott@rankin.edu. I reversed that, but you don't use the @ sign. All right, so if yours is Christopher_Hardy@InsideRankin.org, I do org dot, and just back it up like that. You can do it any way you want. You literally can put your name there. Don't put any blank spaces in here. Did you hear me? I'd even really suggest, I don't know, I've never tried it with like underscores like you guys got in your name, but I know people did it last year and didn't have any problem with it.
What's the purpose of doing that?
This is, you didn't see this from the IntelliJ. It's going to create a package which is going to be your main folder, which is going to hold everything. That's going to be the name of that folder. All right? And basically, when you put your stuff out on the App Store, when you kind of look at it that there's a bunch of people with Hello World apps out there, the way they could tell it was yours is by your package name. Now, notice for the location, yours may not be set. I'm going to recommend you use your desktop unless you've got someplace special you like to save things, wherever that is. If you would already have a folder on your desktop called Hello World, this might give you an error. Or typically what it does is it'll append a number 2 on the end, and it'll now be called Hello World 2. Did you hear that? All right. I always save my stuff to my desktop, and it will create this folder for us. I want you to see this if you look up on the screen here. Just want you to agree with me here. I'm going into my File Explorer. I'm going to the desktop, and this is my desktop. Would everybody agree looking right here? These are my folders. I do not have a folder named Hello World. Do you agree? All right. I should in just a couple minutes. Okay, so we'll go back and we'll look in just a minute or two. The language. If we wanted to do a Kotlin app, we would choose Kotlin here. Okay? We're going to use Java. If we have time at the end of the semester, I'd love to do a Kotlin app with all of you and even have you publish that. That would be, to me, that would be great. If you had one app we published as a class in Java, one app we published as a class in Kotlin, and your own app in Java. That'd be so cool, in my opinion, for you to be able to say, I got 3 apps out there already, and be able to go out to the App Store and show them. All right? I'd like that. All right. Now, minimum API level. Notice, look what we have here. Please look up on the screen. Your app will run on approximately 95.3% of devices. See that? And it says here, help me choose. That's the same information that you just had that I showed you. I'm not saying the numbers are the same, but it's the same information. All right? Again, the numbers may be a little bit different. I don't know. All right? You go, well, I'm looking on here and it doesn't even have pi. I don't make this stuff up. This is somebody else is in charge of this. But what they're saying is if we set it to, I think they said ice cream sandwich, whatever it was, notice, and it was Kit Kat, 95.3% of devices will run on that. And if somebody comes back and says, it won't run on mine, I'm running ice cream sandwich, you just tell them to upgrade. All right? And we'll talk about how to do that in a little bit. So typically we're just going to leave it here. That's fine. All right? So when we're done, we click Finish.
You chose Kit Kat?
The one that was there, I think it was Kit Kat, yeah. Now, don't worry if your machine does not look exactly like mine right now. Don't worry about it. But I do want you to look up on the screen here at one thing. You see this down here? You may or may not have that. If you don't worry about it. I'll show you how to get it in a minute. But down here, a bunch of my background files, my system files, they're being built for me right now. Did you hear me? So until that finishes, all right, until it finishes, now it says it's synced successfully. It probably is done because there's really nothing in here, all right? But sometimes that may take a few minutes, just so you know that. So if you go, well, I put some code in, I want to run it, it won't run. It's because it's still built, it's still working with what are called the Gradle files. We're going to talk about what all that stuff is in just a bit, all right? And last thing, because we're going to take a break. It is 1:34 already, but I want to show you. Again, yours may look like this. It may not. All right? You look at this, and you might say, well, that's too big. Notice we got a tab over here. This says this is our project window. And if I click here, see how I can make it bigger and turn on and off? I can also drag on it and make it as small or as big as I need it to be. All right? Over here, if you look on the screen, we've got a thing that says Gradle. That's the stuff that's building in the background. So I can click there and it'll show me my Gradle stuff. If I don't want it anymore, I can click the minus sign and it'll go away. I can always bring things in and remove things anytime I need to. All right? So it is 1:35. Let's please come back at 1:50. I'm hoping everybody got to this point right now. All right, now if you didn't, you've got 15 minutes to try to get to that point. We haven't put any code in. We haven't done anything yet. All right, so again, 1:50, please.